open models as good as closed models. And I think if for those out there that aren't familiar with this space, generally how that has been done in the past is via benchmarks. And these are data sets where there's an example input, there's some expected output, right? And you run your model with the input, see what the model produces as the output, compare the two, and then there is some scoring metric to tell you how well you did. And so these are benchmarks, MMLU, SWE, for the coding side. There's scoring arenas that are interesting if you look up graduate reasoning, math benchmarks, all of these sorts of things. And generally, if we look at kind of the more recent models that are closed, Opus, GPT 5.5, blah blah blah, and the open or the closed models, those, and then the open models that are more recent. So things like Kimi models and Quen 3.5, and these models that are more recent on the open side. Generally, there is still a gap in terms of like those models being a few percentage points to maybe a little bit more scoring lower on these benchmarks than the state of the art closed source models. I guess I don't know if it's a hot take, Chris, but maybe my divisive question would be, who cares about benchmarks and why does this even matter? Or maybe another way to put it is, that's fun to think about, all of these benchmarks, but it has nothing to do with the real world.
True. It's a good point. It's, one of the things that I think, there's two considerations there, is that, like how much do frontier models matter for most people in most use cases? Yes, are many of us using them for our chats and things like that? Yeah, but I think one of the points, and I'm certainly coming at this from that physical AI side, is it's not these giant frontier models that people are investing in for things like wearables and other small devices that you may have for things that are away from data centers, so where you're having the power, and away from reliable comms and stuff like that. I think there's a whole world of models that are geared towards specific use cases, and therefore some of these big benchmarks that we're focusing on in the news so often, that comes up, hey, the new model is out and these are the benchmarks and look what it did against the existing incumbent and stuff. It's a bit of showmanship there as well. But I will say this, for companies that have been without having some of these larger open source frontier models like the position Llama was for a while, you have a lot of startups that are basing their companies on their access. And if you believe that your company's products and services are dependent upon a frontier model, and you no longer have kind of, you think that the gap starts to grow again between closed source frontier and open source, then you have a big risk in your business in terms of hoping that those companies, their APIs and the capabilities that those companies are choosing not to get into still suits your business. And as an example, and I'm not particularly picking on, this happens across all of them, but 2 weeks ago, Claude Design came out from Anthropic, and prior, going into that, there were a whole, and we've had the same with OpenAI also has some new image capabilities, and so if you've been building a company on their closed source API, you've just kind of gotten eaten if it's, if you were trying to provide those specific functions. So there's a lot of risk in terms of entirely building a business based on somebody else's business exclusively that may have an interest in taking over your thing. And so I would be very, very cautious myself before I dived into that territory. So